Howdy, howdy! Sue Devil here, and welcome to some unit testing against the Greenskins Nasty Skulkers. Now, in the title of the video, I put that they are bugged. I'm going to go over exactly how bugged they are, which is they're extremely bugged, and the testing, I will show you the testing that proves it. And I don't know how bugged they've been for how long, but we'll go over that. But Nasty Skulkers are a unit that ever since they came out, I've known like they have been really a great unit, and they're an outstanding value, and when you come up across them in campaign, they're really good. So I kind of wanted to see how they stood up to Dowie Infantry, Dwarf Warriors in particular. And I'm going to look at Dwarf Warriors, regular Dwarf Warriors, what adding some chevrons does, some Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, and the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. I do have some bonus testing we're going to go over, and a little bit of more chat about the Nasty Skulkers in general. This will be a fairly long video for those who don't like the details, don't want to go over every line of the spreadsheet. Head to the end. I'll put a summary there. Just fast forward right to the end of the video, and I'll have something quick for you there to just look over and review. For those of you who love the testing, love the details, want to see what the analysis teases out of this matchup and how the Nasty Skulkers perform and how dangerous this unit really is against the Dowie and how bugged it is, stay tuned. We are going to start going over it right now. So the Nasty Skulkers is quite a unique little unit. It's very inexpensive at 500 for what it can do. It has armor piercing. So 18 armor piercing damage, which is good. Has a okay melee attack at 26. Not great. Pretty poor melee defense at 16. And very poor leadership at 40. Almost no armor at 15. But this unit really makes up for those deficiencies with some of their other abilities. One is stock and vanguard deployment, so you can't see them until they're pretty close, so they can flank, they can get around the edges, they can show up where you don't think. You know, if you were playing against the Greenskins, you could be trying to flank them, and boom, there's a group of Nasty Skulkers there. They are such a good unit. Even if they weren't bugged, they'd still be extremely good. But they're really bugged, and they're definitely they can abuse that bug state that they're in right now. So I couldn't see why any Greenskin player wouldn't be having lots of Nasty Skulkers, because they are definitely way overperforming right now because they're bugged, and they perform very nicely in their role, their very specific role as it is. So what makes them so great? 500, you know, 24 weapon strength. You know, if we look at that compared to our Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, you know, they have way less melee defense, 14 less melee defense. They do have 4 more melee attack. They're a lot faster at 37 speed, you know, plus 9 speed. They only have plus 2 charge bonus. They have minus 6 weapon strength. What makes them so great? And what it is these two abilities. Number one is this smoke bomb. Smoke bomb is fantastic. It is a 30 meter radius, minus 76% speed for 21 seconds, and you can cast it every 90 seconds. This is a very similar to Grombrindle's smoke bomb, which we go and take a look at Grombrindle. Where is he? Grombrindle's smoke bomb right here, minus 76% speed and 30 meter radius, and it only recharges if he's engaged in melee, and it's minus 27 melee defense, and the duration is 25 seconds, and he can cast it every 90. But again, only recharges if he's in melee, and it costs 163 gold. You know, and you need to bring on a lord that has 1650 health to get it on, so 163 gold. When you kind of look at that ability being worth 163 gold, let's say maybe it's only worth 100 gold. It's got to be at least worth that. At least worth that 100 gold. Especially on a unit that is Vanguard and stock, that you don't even see it coming. At least worth 100 gold for a massive speed debuff you can use over and over, and you don't need to be in melee for it to recharge. It'll just recharge. You know, that puts their value, their cost actually down to about 400, which really is where you should evaluate them. The second ability, and the bugged ability, is this right here, Opportunist Murderer. So this is really good. Like when they're in melee combat and they're winning, this buff pops up for 15 seconds, and they get plus 13 melee attack and plus 40% armor piercing damage. So this weapon strength of 24 goes all the way up to 31, and that's all armor piercing. So now they get a significantly better weapon strength than the Dwarf Warrior with great weapons, and their melee attack goes up to a whopping 39, which is outstanding for a unit at a cost of 500. The reason this is bugged is, if you look at the top right hand corner, it only has 3 charges. I mean, it's just like Rune of Wrath and Rune, where you can only use it 3 times. You're only supposed to be able to, this should only go off 3 times, but it goes off indefinitely. It goes off every time it's down, it will go back up, and it will go off over and over. So effectively, what you see with this unit, even if they're getting beaten, and that's the second bug, will have 39 melee attack and 31 weapon strength at 500. So it is bugged to the point that it is effectively 13 extra stat points for the melee attack, and the weapon strength is effectively 31, not 24, all armor piercing. Like that extra 7 is like an armor piercing of 25. So it's like they have 25 armor piercing, which is really, really good. And when it says if they're winning, so that is also bugged. It also goes off if they are even in combat. And I've tested it against Ironbreakers. So this should never go off against Ironbreakers ever for any reason. I tested it against the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers actually, and it still goes off once on the first time. But it has to be they have to be definitely losing before this will not go off. So even if they're kind of losing and kind of even, it still keeps going off, and we'll demonstrate that when we go and take a look at these fights. So it is seriously bugged. I don't know how long it's been bugged. Maybe since the beginning. Maybe no one's ever actually looked at it. Which is certainly possible, and I don't know how to submit a bug report. I should probably figure it out. But yeah, Nasty Skulkers are definitely bugged, and they're definitely powerful, no bug or bug. So how do they stand up to, how do our Dwarf Warriors stand up to these Nasty Skulkers? Because Nasty Skulkers are a unique unit in that they're armor piercing and they don't have armor. So we have lots of armor, so they'll do good against us, but we don't have armor piercing. So, and they don't have armor, so we should do good against them. So it's kind of a weird little trade. They fit into a unique sort of, I guess, a sort of a class of their own. They're almost like a Slayer with no armor and armor piercing, like a Giant Slayer for 500, but they don't have bonus versus large where the Slayers do. So that's kind of where they fit in, I guess, to liken them to some sort of unit. So how do our Dwarf Warriors do against them? And we're going to go to the spreadsheet, and I'll explain how I take down that data like I do every time, because it's important to understand how I try to understand the data, because I'm not saying this is perfect, or this is the way you should do it, or this is the way everyone should do it. This is the way that I do it, because these are the things that I want to understand about how these two units interact on the battlefield, and really how do they fit into builds and these sorts of things, and what should I do to plan to deal with Nasty Skulkers, who you will absolutely see in every fight against the Greenskins. And if you don't, you should. Like, if someone's not bringing at least 2 units of Nasty Skulkers against you when you're playing the Dao-E, they're doing themselves a disservice, because they can sneak right up and get around, and they get into the main lines. They're very vulnerable to a lot of things, but they're an outstanding unit. You should always see some. So how do they stand up against the Dwarf Warriors? Well, let's go in there and see. So I do try and set up all my battles to be very repeatable, and that's something that's really important to me. I understand formations make a difference. You know, if you have a line of infantry and 5 infantry on each side instead of just 1, that makes a difference. If you have lords, if you have buffs, and all these things all make a difference. The purpose of what I'm trying to do is to make my tests very repeatable, so that I can get data over time, which I've been testing this game for 2 years, and I can do the same test in a year after everything has changed with the exact same conditions, and I should truly see the difference in results. and it makes it easy for someone to repeat my testing if they think I might have missed something, or maybe I didn't test enough, or anything like that. It's easy to repeat, and it's also a basis for, okay, we know formations make difference A, and this is what the test shows. If I went in that different formation, it would just accentuate the results of the test. So they always show up hidden. So we're going to watch here as we get engaged. And I'm just going to click on these nasty Skulkers, and we'll see. So now they've got their opportunistic murder, and they started on even. So they think they're winning. So that's time number 1. And I'm just going to fast forward it. Number 2, number 3, now that should be it. They should get it no more. Number 4, they get it again. 5, this just keeps going on forever and ever. It just keeps going on over and over and over. And even if they don't think they're winning, even if they think the battle is even, they will get that buff, and it just keeps going. Opportunistic murder. So it's essentially like they're always at 39 melee attack and 31 weapon strength. They spend a very brief amount of time with it off, but you can see they beat our Dwarf Warriors reasonably. I mean, they don't beat the brakes off them. It's reasonably fair. So we're going to go to the spreadsheet and see how our Dwarf Warriors stood up. Like, it's close. We killed 57, they killed 58, but they have 120 models and we have 75, but we have way better leadership. They have way worse leadership. So let's go take a look at what the data is actually showing us. Oops, that's not what I want. Okay, there we go. So the data, if we go to here, these are the bug nasty Skulkers. I did this testing last night, July 5th. I try to keep the date there. I'm trying to do that so I can see testing over time. So we actually won one of the 7 fights with our Dwarf Warriors at a cost of 450. But the nasty Skulkers generally won with 36% of their health left. Pretty reasonable victory, and you can see we would have won more of those fights had that plus 13 melee attack and 40% that not just kept going off. So I don't know what the full results of that going off are. I can't really do any sort of testing to test that precisely, I don't think. But anyways, you can see we lose, but not by a whole lot. We only lose 68 gold. We're losing at 30 gold per minute. Not really fast. And we obviously have the ability to chevron up our Dwarf Warriors to help ourselves out with that. So the next thing I wanted to go and see is I wanted to see, okay, so how do Dwarf Warriors with great weapons do? I'm trying to test the kind of groups against groups in general, because I want to see, we have 30 weapon strength, which is higher than the Dwarf Warriors 28, and it's armor piercing. Not that it matters in this fight. Technically, the nasty Skulkers should do better against our Dwarf Warriors, because this is kind of the optimal situation for them. Dwarf Warriors with great weapons have a lot of armor, and they're an armor piercing unit. And you give something up when you're an armor piercing unit in terms of your total damage output, so that our nasty Skulkers should be able to do even better against armor piercing armored units like our Dwarf two-handers. But let's get in there and see how our Dwarf Warriors with great weapons do. And we know our Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are underperforming. Not as badly as our Longbeards, and definitely not as badly as Miners, but they are definitely underperforming. So let's go and see how they do against these nasty Skulkers. Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are, based on my testing, are the least poorly performing out of the 3. Longbeards with great weapons and Miners. I think the Miners are the worst. The Miners are actually atrocious. Longbeards with great weapons are pretty poor, but Dwarf Warriors are not. They're the least worst of the bunch. And of course, Hammerers are still great. So let's go in there and get a fight. Okay. And we'll get in there, and again, they see that they're winning. 1, 2, 3, and now their advantage should be over. But you can see they're definitely killing us pretty quick. Oh, there's 4, and it's just going to keep going. But they are definitely taking it to our Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. And this is kind of the unit they should do well against, to be fair, when you look at how their stats line up. So let's go take a look at the actual data. And if we get our Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, well, they lost all 7. Our Dwarf Warriors great weapons cost 500, the same as the Nasty Skulkers, but the Nasty Skulkers should do good against our Dwarf Warriors great weapons, and they sure do. They win all 7. They actually take 125 gold, so our Dwarf Warriors great weapons are actually worth less than our Dwarf Warriors in terms of their total value. The Dwarf Warriors great weapons do have a higher DPS or damage per second. When it comes to it, they're doing 29 DPS. Oh, I didn't explain this for anyone who's wondering what the hell all these numbers are. So I do 7 tests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I take the start time of the battle, 59 minutes and 54 seconds on the timer, and take the finish time of the battle, 57 minutes, 28 seconds. So I get a battle time in seconds. 146 seconds these two units fought before one of them broke. Then I look at the starting hit points and end hit points of each unit. 917, we started with 5850, same with the Nasty Skulkers, and I calculated DPS for each unit. 24.9 damage per second for the Dwarf Warriors, 33.8 damage per second for the Nasty Skulkers, to look at their actual DPS output, their damage output. And then I look at their finishing hit points, 917, divided by their starting hit points, 5850, and multiply that by their starting cost of 450 gold. Then I do the same for the other unit and subtract them. So in this case, we actually lost 89 gold in that encounter. Sometimes you can lose an encounter and still win gold. And then I look at the gold per minute. So we lost 89 total gold, but we were losing at 36 gold per minute. And our gold ratio, this is something for a different sort of testing. I just like to have it. It's really how much gold did we spend to get this result. It's almost like a return on investment. Not precisely, but it's a better way to compare units that are vastly different on the cost scale. And then of course we look at the win-loss ratio, because that also really matters. And so in the end, the Nasty Skulkers actually finished with about the same amount of hit points, but the battles only lasted 134 seconds as opposed to 149, so they were over faster, just because of the higher DPS for both units. So the next thing I wanted to test are the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. So we look at our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. They are a unit that is worth 700 gold. They have flaming attacks, not that it matters here, but the big thing that does matter is they do have a bonus versus infantry. So that's going to give them 6% extra weapon strength and 6 extra melee attack. So their melee attack is going to be 33. And melee defense of 53. They're a pretty damn good unit. I really like the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. They're a little more situational. They used to be ridiculously good. But how are they going to stand up against these Nasty Skulkers? So let's go in there and see exactly how they do. And yeah, they nerfed the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass 2 times, I think, in the past 8 months. But they're still, you know, maybe they nerfed them too hard, maybe they didn't, but they're still good in certain situations. And they're never a unit, if you bring them to the fight, they're never a unit that is a straight out bad unit. Okay, so let's get in there and fight these guys. So we have a, 53 melee defense is pretty huge, and here's where we're going to see this other part of the bug. So they're definitely just, the battle's even, yet they're still getting their buff. You can see their cross, and now they're losing the fight. Our Dwarf Warriors are winning, and they're still getting the buff. Eventually their cross will go red, and they're losing. It's red, and they're still getting the buff. They're about to break, right? They're about to break, and just before they break is the last time they don't get the buff. So our Dwarf Warriors, Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, actually beat them, but you can see they kept getting the buff right up until they broke. So let's go take a look at what the stats look like. Were we able to come out of that fight ahead on gold or behind in gold? Is the key thing that I want to understand when it comes to that matchup, very specifically. And again, definitely, we know there's lots of units that are going to do good and are good counters to those Nasty Skulkers with their no armor, and we have answers, but I want to see how that infantry fight's going. This is me being curious, and I just love testing, and I did a whole bunch of extra testing because, once I start testing, I can't stop. So, Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, how did they do? Well, they won all 7. And they actually won gold. So they won a total of 20 gold. It's not a lot, but they won. And they were doing 48 DPS. That's the big difference. Like, they were really kicking the crap out of them. and they only got 30 DPS in return. Our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass finished with 50% of their health. The Nasty Skulkers all cracked at about 29% of their health and ran away. So our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass are quite good. Had we had the debuff available from our Thane of the 22% weakness to fire, this would have been a crushing defeat. You know, we would run a lot more gold out of that. Of course, I didn't do that test. Maybe I should have, but whatever. It's, you can infer that you're basically, that DPS is 48%, or 48.7, add 22% to it. This is just it's a straight up addition to damage. So our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, very nice unit, and they're very nice in this matchup. They do exactly what we want them to do. This is not a matchup I would generally want for the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass because they're just barely winning it. What you want is you want the big wins, right? You want, you know, the plus 200 golds. That's what you're looking for. Like, if you can get those matchups in an online match, you win faster and harder. So this would be, it's almost like a draw, but a slight win for us, basically, is what I would say. So I want to go look at Dwarf Warriors again with some chevrons. Can we chevron them up to get them to the point where they're going to beat them Nasty Skulkers? Now, so we went back and looked at our Dwarf Warriors, and Dwarf Warriors have one single, what I would call, sweet spot in their chevrons. And it's a funny, because every single chevron you increase gives them 2 stat points on melee attack and 1 leadership, and of course a little bit of vigor. So here they got they got melee attack and melee defense. Here they just get melee defense, but they get 2 stat points. Here they got melee attack, melee defense. Here they get melee defense, 2 stat points, and so on and so forth. Turns out their sweet spot is based on the cost of their chevron. So you look, their first chevron is 23 gold. Second chevron is 22 gold. Third is 24. Next one is 25. And this last one is only 21 gold. Boom. The next one after that is 27 gold. So if I look at a local optimum, that is with 5 chevrons, because they average 23 gold per chevron. So it's actually the cheapest stat boost you can get, and it puts them to a cost of 565. So they're not getting into our Longbeard range at 650 just yet. I will actually, some of the bonus testing is with the Longbeards, because I wanted to see how these guys would all line up against these Nasty Skulkers. But how do our Dwarf Warriors with 5 chevrons do against these Nasty Skulkers? That was my question. So let's get in there and fight and see exactly how we do. You know, that's an extra 10 stat points to our melee attack and melee defense, and an extra 5 leadership, a little bit of vigor. I mean, it's all good things, right? So we'll get in there and fight these Nasty Skulkers, and I'll just put that on again so you can see their buffs just going off over and over and over, no matter what. You know, it just, you know, number 2, number 3, and that should be where it ends, right? 3 uses of that, but it's just going to keep clicking over and over and over again. So you can see we are definitely winning. The Nasty Skulkers are definitely losing. They think the battle's even, but they're, you know, you can see our Dwarf Warriors are winning. Now they're definitely losing. They're kind of, see, they went back to thinking they were tied, even though they're losing, and they got another shot of that buff, and they're wavering, and they got another shot of the buff. It's just crazy. You know, just before they broke is the last one they don't get. So our Dwarf Warriors won. Hooray! So they won, but were they able to pull any value out? It's a pretty even fight. So we'll go in and take a look at those stat lines and see if our Dwarf Warriors at 5 chevrons, their local optimum for total cost, actually gets them into the positive value range against the Nasty Skulkers. So first of all, we actually won all 7. Although they were close. We only won with 23% of our hit points, but we lost gold. But we only lost 30 gold. It was really tight. It's just kind of like the other side of our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. Warriors of Dragonfire Pass 120, we lost 30. You know, it's, you know, it has value above and beyond our regular Dwarf Warriors who lost 68. You know, these guys only lost 30. So, I mean, there's some value there. And Dwarf Warriors with 5 chevrons are a consideration, and there's some matchup with 5 chevrons really do matter a lot. This one, it helps us out a little bit. And we do win. I mean, I guess that's the big thing. We win every time pretty consistently. Although it's just by the skin of our beards, you know, just by the tips of our beards. We don't win by a lot, but we win. And that's also important because their unit's routing, our unit can go fight somebody else, even though they only have 23% of the hit points left. So that has also some intrinsic value, having a unit that's going to win that. The next thing I wanted to look at, we have Dwarf Warriors with 5 chevrons at 565. We looked at our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass at 700. I wanted to look at our Longbeards, our regular Longbeards at 650 to see how they did. So I wanted to grab our Longbeards 650, and our Longbeards have 100 armor instead of 85. They have a little more melee defense, and you know their melee attack's good. They have old Grumblers. How are they going to do up against these nasty Skulkers at 500? So let's start that battle and go and see how they match up. And again, you know, against the Greenskins have a lot of choices, and kind of picking your front line is really up to you in a lot of ways, depending on the rest of your build. I mean, because the Greenskins aren't as restricted in their builds against the Dowie aren't as restricted in their builds against the Greenskins. Plus, Gyrocopters are awesome in this matchup too. But anyways, let's get that fight going. Let's see how our Longbeards are going to do. And we'll get them in there and fighting. And again, I'll just click on these so this can annoy you as much as it annoys me that this goes off more than 3 times, and it goes off even if they're losing. This bug is actually quite... It's more annoying the more I see it. Like, we are clearly winning. They're wavering. Okay, now they're finally not getting that damn buff again, but it might pick up again. We'll watch it here. But they're literally wavering, and they're in the deep red, and we're in the deep green. But our Longbeards defeat them quite easily. But do we actually pull gold? That's the thing. You can see we got lots of health, but are we actually winning that fight in terms of gold? Because that's what matters in an online match where you're gold limited and you each have a fixed amount of gold to spend. You have to win those matches in terms of how much gold you pull. That's what really matters. If you kind of break online matches down to their elements, how much gold did you win in each matchup is what it really comes down to in terms of how you analyze it. So well, we won all the fights, and we won 3 gold. So just barely. We lost 29 gold in one, 34 in the other, 0. I've never seen this happen before. It's funny, I've done so much of this testing, I've never seen the gold differential come out to 0-0 before. And I've seen it twice where 2 fights end up having the exact same time, 57 minutes, 53 seconds, say, and the exact same health at the end. I've seen that happen twice in all the testing I've done too. But this is the first time I've seen it ever end up at 0, so kind of cool. So our Longbeards just pull a little value, 3 gold. That's it. So it's sort of a wash. We finished with 43% of our hit points, and they're 25% of theirs. So you know our Longbeards are going to go around, but and the DPS for our Longbeards is very good, 40. So we finish them off on 116 seconds, which is actually quite good, and which, you know, faster than our Dwarf Warriors at 5 chevrons, 157 seconds, but not quite as good as our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass at 92 seconds. So our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, they win a little gold and they finish them off pretty quick, which is also valuable in a online match. So looking at the Longbeards, I wanted to see one more test, and I wanted to look at our Longbeards with great weapons. And Longbeards with great weapons are really underperforming, and you know, we've done some testing to prove that, and looked at them in terms of how they match up against other units from other factions with great weapons. But how do they do in this matchup? They're a full 250 gold more than the nasty Skulkers, and they, you know, Longbeards with great weapons are pretty good. But the nasty Skulkers are meant to do good against precisely this unit of Longbeards with great weapons because they have high armor. But they have lower melee defense, so this is kind of the unit they're designed to kill, if you will. Or, you know, heavy cav with their smoke bomb also, with their reduction in speed and everything. But how are our Longbeards with great weapons with 250 more gold are they going to do against the nasty Skulkers? So let's get in there and get that fight going and see what happens. And doing this kind of testing, I mean, it helps me understand this matchup specifically, but it also helps you understand kind of your units in a much deeper way. You know, I think that's one of the beauties of testing. You know, it may not make you better at playing so much as better at picking armies, which will allow you to play better. So Nasty Skulkers go in there and they're winning right away, and our Longbeards with great weapons are definitely losing. Now the fight's getting a little bit more even, but I mean, you know, it's close. You can see. Here's the big difference. This is where leadership starts to come into play. We're almost even in health, but our Longbeards with great weapons are way better on leadership, and these Nasty Skulkers are just wavering. They're going back and forth, and are they going to break? Are our guys going to break? Real sliver close with the health, and they break first, we win, even though we only have 619 health left and 13 models. That's a leadership win. How does that look in terms of the gold differential and the stats? That's what I was curious about. And there's something that is really disheartening when you look at it, and I'll point that out to everybody after we go over the basic stats, which was surprised even me, even though I knew how these units match up. Okay, so we'll go down and we'll take a look, and our Longbeards with great weapons actually won every fight, surprisingly. But they only finished with 21% of their health. They were all close with exception of one, where they finished with 2,300. So some of them were really close. 801 health they had left. So it was a leadership win because they both finished with 21% hit points. The Nasty Skulkers and the Longbeards with great weapons, but the Longbeards won every fight. Even though they won every fight, we lost an average of 200 gold. Pretty massive differential. Now, we expected that, right? Our Longbeards with regular Longbeards, you know, we won 3 gold, and our Longbeards with great weapons are more expensive, and they lost 200 gold. Here's the thing that surprised me and is really disappointed, and what I was really disappointed about, and just shows what a sad state Longbeards with great weapons are in. So we look at our Dwarf Warriors here. Our Dwarf Warriors finished them off, the Nasty Skulkers off, in 149 seconds. Okay? Our Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, they lost worse, but they actually, you know, battle ended up kind of 134 seconds, a little faster. This, we won every one. We finished them off in 116 seconds with a Sword and Board Longbeard. It took us 131 seconds to finish them off with a great weapon Longbeard. You know, giant axes. And it took them longer to beat the Nasty Skulkers, even though they won every one. And, you know, that's, yeah, it's only 15 seconds. But this is, in my mind is screaming, no, that's really bad. Even though they lose gold value, they should beat them faster. I mean, this is a great weapon infantry. You know, this is just a sword and board. They just got their axe. This is a giant two-headed axe. If there's one thing these guys should do is a higher DPS, because again, the Nasty Skulkers don't have a lot of armor, but they do have 15. You know, it's only a 7.5% reduction or 7.5% reduction in actual damage, but it's completely mitigated by the Longbeards with great weapons. They should have very good DPS, but their DPS was lower at 37.8 as opposed to 40.6. I don't know. That's really upsetting to me. Like, the more I test Longbeards with great weapons, the more sad I get. Now, someone was asking, is there places where Longbeards with great weapons can be useful? And the answer is yes. Even though they're in this sorry state, you know, in my tournament game against Dav plays, I built a rush army with 5 units of Longbeards with great weapons. Now, I knew they were going to perform badly, but they were the best they're the best infantry I could get because you can only have 5, and they were the strongest. And I played that build in a couple other matches, one against Zardar, one against someone else who's a very good player, and beat them when they were playing Chaos with that build precisely. So there are ways to use Longbeards with great weapons, and there are other matchups where they do pretty decently. I think they do good against, oh geez, it's a Chaos unit. Forsaken. I gotta go and, like, my mind's telling me they actually, Longbeards with great weapons actually do pretty good against Forsaken. I just gotta go test that up again, and I do want to do a little testing to show if there is any matchup that they actually do reasonably well in, or better than another Dowie unit, you know, I'll take a look at it. So anyways, they're pretty sad. You know, 37 DPS versus 40 for the sword and board version. It's like this is it right here, folks. This is why our Longbeards with great weapons are underperforming. And you know, we've done a ton of other tests and showed how they're underperforming in lots of other ways, but this is just a stark example, such a crystal clear example of our Longbeards with great weapons and how poorly they're doing. Now, our regular Longbeards are the best pound for pound sword and board infantry in the game, you know. So I guess that, you know, they should do pretty good. And they do. Like, Longbeards are great. Well, like, we're so fortunate as the Dwarfs to have such a great sword and board unit, and you know, such a strong unit with the you know, old grumblers and the encouragement aura and immune to psychology and charge defense against large, and you know, decent health and 100 armor and good stat lines and you know, all these types of things. I get it, but our Longbeards with great weapons should at least be able to kill nasty Skulkers at a faster rate than our Longbeards with just a shield and an axe. And this shows why they're so bad. And this goes back to the stats. I made a video showing exactly the stat lines I think the Longbeards with great weapons should have. You know, I think they need something like 13 extra stat points. It's really big. Like, they need to have like a melee attack of 40, something like that, to bring them in line with where they should be. I can't remember what the exact number was. But anyways, just to quickly summarize this matchup, Nasty Skulkers. So, in summary, these Nasty Skulkers are completely awesome, and they're completely bugged. We've seen it. As far as Dowie infantry, to go up against them, there are no great choices. There just aren't. I mean, you can put your Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and your Longbeards and your Dwarf Warriors with 5 chevrons up against them, and they will sort of trade evenly, gold for gold, gold coin for gold coin. Where really because the Dowie just don't have the right type of infantry to go up against Nasty Skulkers. Ironically, the exact right type of infantry to go up against these guys are another great greenskin unit, which is the Savage Orcs. Savage Orcs are actually an extremely good unit. You know, I don't see them used enough. They are so good, even against the Dwarfs. But let's just take a look at how crushing this fight is when the Savage Orcs go against the Nasty Skulkers. Like, this is one of the reasons greenskin infantry is so good, is they all have a role and they do it really well. The only place where they're lacking is a few more armor-piercing infantry and sword and board infantry. Like, they should have sword and board Black Orcs. I mean, really, they should. And even maybe Halberd. But anyways, let's take a look at that fight for the Savage Orcs. So they're just going to come in. they're just going to Shrek these Nasty Skulkers in, like, what, 30 seconds. Done. Savage Orcs are like, see ya. Yeah. But the Dowie do have tools to deal with the Nasty Skulkers, and we can deal with them in many, many ways. So we'll just take a look at one of the so many ways to deal with Nasty Skulkers. First of all, your Gyrocopters. Gyrocopters are really good in this matchup against Greenskins, because Greenskins can't put a lot of things up in the air. They can harass your gyros, but your gyros are fast enough to get what they want. And your base Gyrocopter, this is the very best matchup, I think, for your base Gyrocopter, because it is doesn't do armor piercing, but as we've seen, it has that leadership bomb, hit by artillery, and they can charge things in the back for another -10 to their leadership. And the Greenskins are a low leadership faction. And of course we have our Rangers, our Quarrelers, our artillery. We have other things that can do quite well against them. But the funnest unit and the funnest combination, turns out, in terms of total damage and total damage to leadership, are your Iron Drakes and your Gyrocopter. So I'm going to make sure I bring my Iron Drakes to my next fight against the Greenskins. I'm loving this combination, because here's the thing that the Greenskins struggle with. they only have 40 leadership, and that is a real problem. And these Iron Drakes, not only when they hit do they give it -5 leadership from hit by missile units, they also give them this burnt, which is -8 leadership. Combined with the high damage of the steam gun for the gyrocopter and putting on the hit by artillery of -10, this is a devastating combo against low armor, low leadership units like this Nasty Skulker. So let's just go take a look at how fast this happens. It's you know, just for fun, you know, watching these Nasty Skulkers. The Nasty Skulkers are really good, but this is exactly the unit combination which is amazing against these Skulkers. So put that there, and let's just you know, put these guys here for fun, and we'll grab them, and let's just get a shot off. So, you know, we're just gonna go ahead and get one shot going, and they're, you know, there they go. So we pause that, and one shot we took off their 3367, about half their health, 3,000 health basically. And if we look at their leadership, there it is: damaged by artillery -10, discouraged by ability -8, under missile fire -5. Now the exposed flank, damage sustained, like, you're gonna get a lot of damage sustained too, but they don't even make it. And herein lies the weakness of these units. So that's why Nasty Skulkers, I think they're a great unit, because they are crushing, but they do have their weaknesses, you know, like that really poor leadership. But they will disappear, come back, and rally, and you know, they'll be able to sneak up on you again. So they're a really fun unit. And yes, see, they have this. Oh no, that's not their thing. They do have the smoke bomb too, which is amazing. Like, above, even without smoke bomb, they're worth 500. But with this smoke bomb, they're crazy valuable. How could you not have these guys in any matchup? I don't know. Maybe every single orc player does bring them. I don't know. Anyways, that's a very, very strong combo. One volley. You know, you still have our 24 out of 25 ammunition. You know, one volley from the Iron Drakes. And these Iron Drakes, I really need to start using them more. They are quite powerful. And with that Thane and the weakness to fire, this would be even worse. So let's end that battle. And I guess just talk about this in summary. So, you know, I think this is the very best possible combination, and we didn't use our gyrocopter bombs, and we didn't charge them in the back, so we had another bit of leadership bomb. And these two are actually good in the greenskin matchup overall against pretty much anything the greenskin have. And there's lots of ways, like, you know, the Goblobbers are good, very good in this matchup, and there's lots of things you can do. But really, those Nasty Skulkers, outstanding unit. They do great against all of our Dwarf infantry. There is no quote-unquote good matchups. There are only even matchups, and that is Dwarf Warriors, right? Base Dwarf Warriors with 5 chevrons, Longbeards at 650, and Warriors of Dragonfire Pass at 700, unless you're somehow buffing them or backing them up some other way. So anyways, hope you found that interesting. Would love to hear from you in the comments. I always notice Nasty Skulkers in campaign. You know, you'll get out of a fight, you'll have focused on trolls and black orcs, and then you get out of the fight and Nasty Skulkers will have like 90 kills. So they always show up. And they're really super annoying because it's easy to forget. You got to focus on them because you don't see them, because they have you can't hit them with artillery as they come in because they have stock, and then they show up and you're already focused elsewhere with all your guys. So they're a very good unit, and they are sneaky, and you know, they're nasty and they're skulky, so you know, they earn their name. I'd love to hear your experiences with the Nasty Skulkers. Have you played, you know, the greenskins in campaign or in multiplayer and use the Nasty Skulkers? What has your experiences been with them on your army? What have your experiences been fighting against Nasty Skulkers? Are there any other combinations that you've used, just like the gyrocopter and the Iron Drakes that I showed? You know, that type of thing. I'd love to hear comments. It's one of my favorite things. It always spurs new videos. You know, if it's just to suggest something else to test, or to ask a question about the testing that I did, or make a suggestion about more testing or different testing, or thinking about these units in a different way, I'd love to hear it. Or even if you just stop in to say hi, I love it all. Looking forward to hearing comments below. And with that said, I will see you soon.